Hi everyone, this is James Mulvaney from Radio.co and Wave Streaming, and today I'm joined by Kate Cocker. Hi.
Hello,
Kate,
hi.
And welcome along to this webinar, which is called How to Be a Better Radio Presenter. Now, Kate Cocker's the presenter coach. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. If you want to tweet us, you can tweet us at Radio.co or @_presenter coach. And the hashtag to use is #BetterOnAir. If you want to get involved in the conversation, we're going to be doing a bit of a Q&A at the end. Kate's been working with us on a course, so I'll hand you over to Kate now and we'll crack on. We'll get started with the presentation.
Thank you, James. Yeah, really excitingly, I've been working with Radio.co to put together a 6-module course. And this webinar really is an opportunity for you to take something away with you today. It's not 6 modules, it's going to be about an hour, including some questions, we hope. But I just want to give you a bit of a sense of who I am to start with. Can you toggle me over?
Yes.
So I can...
Oh, yes. Okay, there we go. Right, there we go. Should be up and running.
So my name is Kate Cocker. I'm the presenter coach. I've been working with radio presenters for about the last 15 years. I've worked with presenters from grassroots level all the way up to the top of their game in lots of different radio stations. So these are the radio stations you can see here. It's pop music, it's rock music, it's talk, it's music stations, it's commercial, it's BBC. I'm really passionate about radio presenting. I'm really passionate about enabling presenters to be creative, authentic, and to really work their personality to ensure that they're engaging with their audience. This next hour is all about helping you to be the presenter you can be, the best presenter that you can be, to ensure that your listener likes you, they trust you, that they're going to always come back to you, and that you're engaging with your audience at a really deep level. And this is really important if you want to build profile and if you want to build your audience and you want to build revenue as well with your radio station. So should we start from the top?
Absolutely.
Should we do it?
Yeah,
okay.
let's go.
So let's all get on the same page. To me, a radio presenter is you're at the forefront of communication. You're the person, you're an authority on life, basically. You are the storytellers of our time, and you are connecting your listener to the world. You're in their life all the time. You are the window to a world that's beyond what they're doing right there and then. And I'm really, really passionate about making sure that you're doing this in a way that's really, really, you're having impact and really engaging with your listener. Now, to me, there are 2 elements that make up a really good radio presenter, and you'll know this from listening around. Firstly, you've got to be a great host. So you've got to be able to put on a show. You've got to sound like you're in charge. You're the communicator. You're guiding me through what you're doing. And the second element is your personality. So the way that you're going to connect with anyone is by bringing yourself to the table. The more personal you are, the deeper you will connect. This is about your stories. This is about your opinions. And it's actually about you having empathy and listening as well. I say there are 2 things that make a great radio presenter. Actually, there's a third. Without this guy, you are just a person in a box talking to themselves. You are not a radio presenter. And your listener is really, really important. Now, these 3 elements make up you as a radio presenter, but what skills do you need? And that's what we're going to cover today. You need to have a variety of skills. And I loved writing this slide in the week. I was thinking this is a bit Napoleon Dynamite, listener skills, nunchuck skills, that kind of thing. So I ended up with this whole skills pyramid, if you like. The fundamental skill to being a great radio presenter is understanding your audience. So understanding your listener, that is why it's the base. That's why it's the foundation. On top of that, 2 and 3 is your content and your hosting skills, which I just discussed then. And then on top of that, it's about doing really good prep and really good planning for your shows. And on top of that, you've got your voice skills. And I'm really excited to bring you some of this because actually this isn't stuff that you even get in radio stations. You don't tend to hear about how to use your voice to make sure you're an authentic, better radio presenter. So they're the building blocks. We're going to crack straight on and get into your listener. Right. Why is this the place to start? Let's take your listener with his lovely ears. It could be a girl. It could be a boy. It's up to you, really.
But there's always one listener.
There's always one listener. So when I say there's always one listener, I don't mean you've only got one person listening to you, because that would feel a bit sad. What I mean is, when you're listening to the radio, you know as well as I do, you're not doing it as a group experience. It's not like the 1800s or 1900s where you're sitting around in the living room listening with your family because it's the only place you're going to get the information. The experience you're having with the radio is one-to-one. which is why when you're presenting, you have to think about it being a one-to-one medium. This is my first number one top tip. One-to-one medium. So first things first, if you ever find yourself saying, hello, you all out there, or you all think this, or I know you're all with me, or is there anyone out there who thinks this? Stop now. It's you. It's one person. Are you with me? Am I the only one that experiences this? Is it you that thinks this? You is a really powerful word, and you need to use it in its singular form. You're trying to create a really strong relationship with your listener. You're trying to create this relationship because you need them to do the following. You need for them to be able to remember you. They need to remember your name. They need to remember the station that you're on, because you need them to be able to recall that so they come back, right? If they come back, they're also likely to refer you to their friends. They are the best advertising that you have. This is why it's important to create really strong, really meaningful relationships with your listener. Your listener is your friend. You want to build an authentic relationship with them. They're your follower. So this is where you kind of create a little club, a little gang, you know, they buy into you and they come with you where you go, and you want to create a client out of them. You know, treat them like they're a client, give them really good customer service. You know, you're not necessarily selling to them, you know, like in a financial transaction, but actually you're trying to get them to buy into you.
I suppose ultimately as well, the listeners are responsible for advertising revenue, so they are kind of a client in that respect.
Yes, they are. They are absolutely. Yeah. But I just think sometimes it's if in your head you start to cloud it with the financial things, it starts to get a bit funny and fuzzy. And actually, when I talk about clients, I do mean them in that way, but I also mean them in the sense that, you know, they really will buy into you. And if you're thinking of them like that, then it will really help you to hone why it's important to engage with them. So in life, there's a lot going on. You know as well, you're not just listening to the radio in a day, are you? You're on YouTube, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter. Your listener has a lot to distract them away from you and your presenting and what you're doing on your radio show. But beyond that, they've got their own life to think about as well. So they've got their family, they've got work, they've got health, love, money. I don't know about you. This is me. You know, this is me. I'm thinking about my family all the time. I'm thinking, right, what time do I have to pick the kids up and where have I got to be? You can use these as areas to pick content from, because obviously these are your, you know, your listeners' needs, their values. And if you can create a feeling where you and what you're saying is intersecting with your listener's life, then you've hit the nail on the head. This is exactly what you need to be doing. But this is what their life could be like, right? This is what's going to be in their brain. So what I want to talk to you about as we're moving forward is just, you know, trying to find content that makes sure you're piercing through this and that they're stopping and they're listening. Okay. Oh, I need you back. Thank you. So the first rule that I tend to use is never confuse your listener. You know, you need to sound like you're guiding them through. If you confuse them, they are gone. And in the grand scheme of things, they're very, very difficult to get back because they'll make a decision about you right there and then really quickly. Plus, remember, it's a one-to-one relationship. Now, on the course I've developed with Radio.co, we do a little bit more around these questions, but I just wanted to skim over them now. I want you to think about who your listener is. Right now, in your head, 3 things you know to be true about the person you're talking to. You might have a really good idea from the radio station that you work for that who your listener is, and they might have done this for you, but you really need to have that image in your head of who you're talking to. What are they doing at the time that you're on air? You know, are they on the way home from school? Are they at work? Are they in the library? Are they running? You know, what are they doing? How can you influence what you say to really impact on the likelihood of where they are? How are they listening? Are they listening on their phones? Are they listening on a tablet? Are they listening on the computer at work? There's a lot more listening going on these days that's not just stereotypically on a radio. I
think that's changed a lot over the past couple of years as well. Yeah. You know, we see that a lot in our business with our clients, the amount of different devices people are connecting now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that can affect the way you then display your content and in turn and thinking multi-platform as well. Where are they listening? Are they in the car? Have you got their attention? You know, I know for sure that, you know, if I'm loading the dishwasher, for goodness sake, I'm listening, you know, I'm intently listening and, you know, put the Archers on and I'm yours. But is their life hustle bustle? Are they in the car or are they in the kitchen with a load of noise going on, the kettle boiling and all of that? What are you competing against? And most importantly, why are they listening? Think about the benefit that you give your listener. the first place you can think about this is that you're giving them information about what is in the air that's important to them right now, like that zeitgeist stuff. But what's the benefit of listening to you? And trust me, just being entertaining is not enough. They need something really specific. So let's move on then to your content, because that seems like a really good place to go. So you're trying to make a friend and follower and client out of your listener. And as I said, your aim is to create content that intersects with your listeners' thoughts, opinions. You know, you want them to be thinking, oh yeah, me too. Because that's the beautiful moment of radio. You know that from listening yourself. Now, there's something in business that I've noticed as I've been doing my research and things like that that started to come up. And it's called know, like, trust. It's the KLT factor. And this is something that businesses are really playing into now in terms of, I mean, you see it all the time, you know, big supermarket chains have conversations with people like they're human beings on Twitter. This is all that is about. It's about creating personality. Actually, radio's been doing this for years, but I really like this idea of know, like, and trust. And I think it's a really good thing for you to get into your mind when you're presenting. You want your listeners to know you. You want them to know who you are. You want them to like you. And there are ways that you can do that. And you want them to trust you. And that's all about being a really strong host and being in charge. And we'll come up to that in the next section. Now, James loves this slide.
Yeah, when I first saw this, I didn't really know what to think. I kind of was like, because Kate sent us this presentation in advance. Obviously, we flipped through the slides and I thought, what the hell is this supposed to be? Kind of looks like some sort of weird, like, I don't know, witchcraft or something like this, but explain.
It's cavemen back in the time when we didn't have radios and we just told each other stories.
Yeah.
And my point is that, you know, off the back of this know, like, trust, the way you build that know and that like element is you tell your stories, you share some of yourself. And the really good news is that your listener, as a human being, is hardwired to hear your stories and is hardwired to want to connect with you. So the will is already there. The trick is kind of keeping them to stick with you, you know? So human beings are hardwired for connection. It's how we evolve. We form relationships, we have babies, etc., etc. It also helps us evolve in terms of information. So, you know, we told stories and other people told stories about how to kill woolly mammoths. And then we wrote books and now we have the internet. So you as a radio presenter are kind of taking on this mantle of being, this is why I talk about you as the storytellers of our time. You know, you're exploring human nature, you're exploring what's going on in your listener's life all the time and your life. And I think it's a really exciting position to have. And it's something that, you know, if you take it seriously, you can do a really good job of it. But you need to think about your content quite specifically. And content on radio takes many forms. Now, a lot of people, you know, they come to radio and they love a feature. They love coming up with the name of the feature before they do the feature. They love competitions, they do phone-in. You know, you've seen this list of content as it comes out of the speakers. You've heard it even, I should say. The thing is that every single one of these requires to have some sort of story structure, if you like. Every single one of these needs to, you know, as human beings, what we like in a story is we like a really positive start, and then we like to see the struggle of what you know, the risk and the jeopardy, if you like, and then the consequence. I mean, that's a basic story structure. Great start, then we go into the struggle, and then we have the resolve at the end, and we have the nice climax. All of these things can take on that structure. A competition is not interesting if you're not playing it unless there is some jeopardy, right? So that's what you need to think about in terms of how to tell stories. All of these are forms of a story. All of these are also vehicles for your strengths. So I don't know if you've thought about it now, but you really think about what you're really good at, or what you find really easy tends to be what you're really strong at or what you're really good at. And if you're really good at talking to people, make sure that you're using content forms that include talking to people. So interviews, phone-ins, that kind of thing. If you're really good at finding funny clips and playing them out, use pre-recorded clips. You know, all this content form should really be a vehicle for your personality. Now, when it comes to your content, you're then thinking about, right, I found some content. How do I make sure that it connects with my audience? So, you know, you have to write it, obviously.
First acronym of the presentation.
I know. I'm a bit of a sucker for an acronym. I'm very sorry. Well, and I'm not sorry as well. So this is about making your content engaging. This is about finding ways to create that intersection between your listener's life and what you're talking about on the radio. Now, I hear this acronym quite a lot in the radio industry. We use it quite a lot. This is my version of it. So R stands for relevant. You've got to be relevant to your audience, to your listener. You know that. The quickest way to do that is to be topical, timely, and right now, and in the zeitgeist. And obviously talking about things that you know your listener will care about, or at least thinking about how you're going to make your content stick with your listener and making it relevant. I is for informative. You just can't underestimate the power of information. You, as a radio presenter, are an authority. If you give a piece of information to your listener that then they can go and share with their friends as if it's their own piece of information, and it creates an opportunity for them to start a conversation and build connections outside of the radio, you are part of their lives. And this has a great, I got this quote a long time ago. It's called social ammunition. It's fantastic. It needs to be human. So make it so it connects. Relationships, I could tell you all about my relationship. And the really interesting thing about when you're talking and telling all about my story, if you like, or you're talking about your story, is that your listener isn't listening to hear your story. Your listener is listening to hear how their story matches with your story. That's where the hardwired stuff comes in. That's where the connection comes in. So I could tell you all about my relationship with my husband, and I quite often do. And the thing is, you're not sitting there thinking, oh, listen to that. That's a really nice relationship. You're listening thinking, oh, when have I had that in my life? When has that relationship thing happened with me? And that's how you connect. That's a connection. So the more human you make it, the more personal you make it, the more likely you are to connect. Because you know what makes us connect is that we're all human. And then you have to make it entertaining. That's E in the rice. How do you tell the story? What's your treatment? What's your angle? How are you going to tell this story? Now, when you look at that, I'm not saying every single piece of content that you choose has to be relevant, informative, connecting, and entertaining, because sometimes relevant, informative, and entertaining is enough, or relevant, connecting, and informative is enough. But you need to be hitting kind of 2 or 3 on that mark. The other thing I wanted to bring to the table was just to really think about where you're getting your ideas from. So my aim for you today is to start thinking like a content maker, not a content taker. I got that because you work in a lot of open offices in radio. So lots of people make cups of tea for everybody. They do what's called the brew run. And we had one office I worked in had a brew maker and a brew taker.
Or the coffee maker in America.
Or the coffee maker, yeah. So we call it like coffee maker or coffee taker, or brew maker or brew taker here in the UK. And I'm a massive brew taker. I'm terrible. But, the content maker versus content taker thing is all about how you make your content your own. So no matter where you're getting your content from, make sure it's got your spin on it. So you go for ideas. You go to news relevant to your listener or your brand, or something that's made you chuckle that you think is relevant to your listener or your brand. And you don't just read it out of the paper or off the internet. That's making you a content taker. You want to pick it up, put your spin on it. Trivia for things your listener cares about is a really good place to start. If you're running kind of a radio station that's all to do with specialist music and you're playing a Led Zeppelin track, you want to throw in some trivia about Led Zeppelin, because that's what your listener really cares about, right? They really care about the music. They want to hear those lovely bits of trivia. So that's where you need to be the authority on these things. Take observations from your life to build analogy into your picture painting and all of that. James and I were talking earlier about this thing. You've got a pen pot in your house.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, pen pot where you have all your pens, whether it by the phone. I don't know if people still have phones. I don't. But wherever
I've got mine in my kitchen and I've got one on my desk.
Exactly. Yeah. So you need to write something down. You grab a pen out of the pen pot. You take the lid off. You start writing. The pen doesn't work. You never put the pen in the bin, right?
I put the pen back.
You always put the pen back.
And then you do the same a week later.
Exactly. And it's just one of those silly observations from life. Do you know what I mean? You kind of go, oh, God, why do I do that? That's the sort of thing that when you talk about that on the radio, your listener's going to go, oh, yeah, I do that too. Me too.
There we go.
Listening, like James just did there. Listening around. So steal and build. Now, I think a lot of people sort of get a bit nervous about stealing ideas. The thing you have to remember is no idea is a new idea. No idea is a new idea. It's been done 1,000 times before, right? The trick is not to steal an idea and do it word for word, because you will get caught out for that. I've seen it happen, trust me. But if you steal and build something, you kind of look at an idea and go, oh, God, that was really good. What was really good about that? Why do I like it? And then when the opportunity arises, put that spin on something that you've come up with.
Absolutely. I think that can be used in loads of different situations,
Absolutely.
really, whether you're presenting on a content or even if you're maybe writing something for a blog, anything like this. You can literally, there's ideas all around. You just have to build on them. Absolutely.
The next thing is you. Now, if you've seen my next radio talk, and if you haven't, it's on YouTube, go and look up Be an Authentic Radio Presenter. You'll see I talk about this thing called 10 things you know to be true about yourself. It's a really useful list to have. You can update it lots and lots. All you have to do is write 10 things you know to be true about yourself. And it's a really good starting point for content. Again, as I said, the thing that will connect you to your listener the most is that you are human. So the more personal you can be, the more likely you are to connect. So really go through, your passions, your quirks, things like that. And I do more about this on the course as well. And usually my one-to-one, with my one-to-one clients, we do a lot of work around their list of 10 things that they know to be true about themselves. The next thing I wanted to do was just give you an idea about how we create, James is just sidling off and I need him, how we create 10 things you do content making rather than content taking. So you take something from the world around you that's relevant and you put your spin on it and you use it as a starting point for your spin. It's called the 60-second brain dump.
And I'm back just in time.
And you're back just in time.
Within 60 seconds.
Now,
this is why I went, because I just went to do the 60-second brain dump.
So this is a brain dump.
Yep.
Some people call it the madman. What this is literally, it's a brainstorm basically, but it's a personal one, okay? It's you writing down everything you think about something. Now, this morning, James and I had a little chat and we said, right, well, let's talk about Beyonce and Jay-Z.
Absolutely.
Because this is really huge in the world right now. And I think even if you're not a fan of Beyonce and you don't care, it's something you can't really avoid because it's everywhere. So I thought, the other thing about doing something like this and making it unique to you is that the world and his wife are going to be talking about this on the radio. You want to be in a position where you are putting your spin on it. I had great grand ideas of getting you to do this where you are with a 60-second timer, but we're quite concerned about making sure we get through this and all of that. So James and I did this earlier. And he's got a list for me from the 60 seconds that he did. Yeah. So what's your list? What have you come up with?
Obviously, Kate sat down and said, right, 60 seconds. And we actually timed this on my phone. We actually set a timer going. So I had 60 seconds to write down as much as I could on this particular topic about the whole concept of Beyonce perhaps cheating on Jay-Z and announcing this through her new lyrics of the new album, which obviously everyone's been talking about. So the bullet points I wrote down, I've got 4 or 5 things here. First of all, I put, obviously, because of this, all of the mega hardcore Beyonce fans get completely obsessed and they're really hyped about the fact that she's released this new album anyway. So it's just more for them to kind of like feed off. Secondly, this is my kind of cynicalism coming through. And basically, I kind of thought, well, maybe this is just media spin. Are they doing this on purpose? How do we even know she actually wrote these lyrics? Most pop music isn't written by the artists themselves. A lot of pop music is written by kind of writers who, work behind the scenes. You never even really know who they are or hear about them. And even if her name is down as having written it, could be ghostwritten. You never know. Finally, if this is written to cause this reaction, it's a great way to really cause discussion and publicity over the new album. And then I'll come to, in a minute, a couple of ideas I had of games or sort of features that you could do on the radio.
So we basically took all of this and I said to James, you're very cynical, Yep. But it's, this is his personal reaction and it's really important that you pick up on that. And often in a very, very real world, I work with presenters who, heaven forbid, they don't like the music that they're playing and they are also cynical about the celebrity. But what you have to remember is, and what I didn't set James up with here, is that, okay, your target audience is a 30-year-old female and she loves Beyonce. She's
Absolutely.
her favorite thing. So you've really got to kind of think about, okay, well, this is how I feel. I'm quite cynical about it. I know that my listeners are going to love Beyonce, so I don't really want to be going in all negative. But I don't also want to be authentic. So it's about working out ways that you can form content out of the stuff that you have then come up with. Mm-hmm. So off you go.
So my ideas were, the album is called Lemonade. So you could use this to run a competition where the prize is a bottle of lemonade. And also then I came up with the idea of it, the competition could be sponsored by like Mountain Dew, for example, or some kind of lemonade company, 7-Up, Sprite, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And what I got from what you said was that you were talking a lot about lyrics And this idea that maybe she didn't write the lyrics and that someone else wrote them for you.
Yeah.
And I said, that even on a simple level, you could do a text in about what do you wish you had someone to do for you.
Yeah.
That's just, we could, not just gardeners.
But then you text in and you win a bottle of lemonade.
There you go.
If your text gets read out on air. Because,
right.
For a radio station, sending someone a bottle of lemonade is not a big expenditure. This is not like winning a holiday or giving away 10 grand, is it?
You'd want it to settle though before you opened it when it came through the post.
Absolutely. You would. Yeah.
So my point is, really squeeze your brain out for things. If you're stuck or you can't quite work out what you want to say about something, you need to sit down and do something like this. It can be 1 minute, it can be 2 minutes, but literally write down everything. Keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. And eventually you will come up with the bit that you really like. Again, on the course, we do a lot more around this and we can really hone in on what it is that
I think the main point is,
really important.
you can really come up with some ideas about nothing. From nothing or about some kind of really trivial or boring subject.
Absolutely. But they should be absolutely unique to you.
Yeah.
And I think it's about really understanding that you can celebrate that rather than worry about trying to be like everyone else. This is about you being you and having the strength to kind of go, this is my thing and my idea. So really quickly then, source content from your life and audience interests. Write your content because that's the first acronym you'll see today. Use the 60-second brain dump. And then filter through your listener, much like we were there when we were saying she's 25, she's female, all that kind of stuff. And think about your structure, your angle, and your language. And we'll come on to that a bit more. So being the host then. Being the host is about being in charge. It's about guiding your listener through what you're doing. Bad hosts confuse their listener. They bore their listener. And guess what? They lose their listener. These hosts, you have heard them on the radio, and then you have this little listener at the back going, bye, see you later. And as I said before, they're very difficult to get back. The host job for business and for profile and for all of these things is to keep your listener listening for 15 minutes more or 20 minutes more. You're listening in blocks of 15 to 20 minutes. When your listener listens to you, you want to make sure that they are hearing the best of you in those 15 to 20 minutes, but that they might also listen or come back to you. If you raise that 15 minutes to 20 minutes or to 25 minutes, you're going to increase your listener hours, which will help you in your listener in your audience figures. Now, this is another one of James's favorite slides.
Well, I thought, first of all, the question I had was, what's the lollipop? And then I actually asked Kate earlier as well, did she draw the wood by hand? Because Kate is actually a very talented artist, by the way. These are hand-drawn illustrations, yeah.
So furniture and lollipops. I worked with a radio presenter at the BBC who kind of kept on saying, right, we've got to give them furniture and lollipops. And we were all like, what do you mean furniture and lollipops? But it's a great little analogy. The furniture of your show is the stuff that is there all the time. It's the stuff that makes the listener feel safe. It's the stuff where you say your station name, you say your name, you know that the news is going to be at the top of the hour. You know that you get ready in the morning to you'll know that if a feature is running late, you'll be confused as to whether you're ready in the morning at the right time. Furniture is the stuff that happens all the time. Lollipops is the surprise stuff. It's the stuff that you throw in to really surprise and delight your listener and make it something that they really want to come back to. And you have to do both of these things. And being the host is about guiding through and understanding when you're going to surprise someone and how you're going to surprise them and reveal the mystery gently, and when it's the time to really guide people through the stuff that they know that they're safe listening to. So being the host is about housekeeping and stationality. So it's about making sure that you're saying that, well, housekeeping in radio, we talk about it. It's saying your name, saying the station name. And stationality is delivering the things that maybe the radio station give you to do in a way that makes it your own. This is about being authentic still. So just because it's housekeeping and you don't want to say your name loads, and just because it's stationality and you don't really care about the fact that this company is going to be giving away this on the radio station, you've got to make it sound like you, because it all adds into the listener trusting you. You need to be good at your link structure, your show structure, and that will come up a bit in the planning, and I'll do a bit more on link structure in a minute. And then you've got to talk about then you've got to concentrate on keeping your listener with you. Keeping your listener with you can be done with lollipops and it can be done with teasing and trailing. And on the course that we'll talk about a bit more in a bit, there's more of that in there as well.
Absolutely.
So I've worked with a lot of musicians or people who aren't radio presenters and brought them into radio presenting through my career. Some of them are brilliant, like Guy Garvey, for example, from Elbow, frontman of Elbow, really good wordsmith. He writes all the lyrics. He's a great storyteller, and he has a really good idea for content and understanding of an audience. All I had to do when I was working with him is really just give him some of the hosting disciplines to get him through from one thing to the next and through the songs and where it was important. On the flip side, I've worked with Andy Rourke from the Smiths, and he's the bass player of the Smiths. And he came onto the radio. His brief was just play loads and loads of tunes. So he was game on for playing a load of tunes, but he didn't really want to talk. And so he'd say to me, Kate, what do I say when I open the mic? What do I say? So I invented this little structure for him specifically, and have used it since. And it really works with people just to get a really good idea of a fundamental structure of a link. And I called it REM because I thought, I'm dealing with a musician here. He'll like that it's another band. So REM stands for reset, entertain, and move on. This is the structure of your link. When you open the microphone, you do the reset. You explain to your listener where you're up to. You don't want them to feel left out. They may have just joined you. You do the start of your link. You do the housekeeping. You do your station name. And you really just set up where you're going. Then you come on to entertaining. This is where you put your content, your story, your feature, your competition, whatever it is. You give it a really lovely big moment in the middle of your link, and then you move on. So you tease into the next thing. It could be your next topic. It could be your next song. It could be anything. Reset, entertain, move on, REM. It's a really nice way to think about your link. And you could draw a little grid if you wanted. If you're stuck with, okay, what am I trying to say here? How am I going to structure this? You could literally do a box that said reset, box entertain, a box that says move on. Now, the thing about this is, as with all the rules I will ever teach you, is that rules are made to be broken. So this is your basic structure. This is your foundation. It's up to you to learn this, understand it, repeat, and then break it. You know, there will be times where it makes sense to do a tease at the top of the link. So to do the move on at the top of the link. There will be times when it makes sense to drop the move on because the entertain part has been so good, and you know that you're going to be doing it in the next link, you know? So it's up to you to make a judgment call on that. But this is your basic structure. And I think really, you know, in terms of narratives for radio, this is what your listener is expecting as well. Planning. I'm going to come on to planning now because it kind of leads off really nicely to this. Everything that we've done up till now has a lot buried in the planning. And this is the final acronym of the day. This is PREP. PREP stands for prepare, rehearse, edit, perform. Now, people talk about you can prep too much. You can prep too much. I'm all for a little bit of spontaneity. But when I hear presenters say, oh, I don't really do much prep because, you know, I want it to be spontaneous. I want it to feel spontaneous. I always think, spontaneous to who? You know, you're not doing this radio show for you in a way. You're not doing this radio show to be spontaneous to you or to the person in the room. You're doing this radio show to be spontaneous to your listener. And trust me, the best presenters that I've worked with and broadcasters that I've worked with are the ones that do the most prep, the most detailed prep. The rehearse and edit part really work together. You know, you kind of cycle through this rehearse, edit, and you go round and round on it. If you rehearse, it gives you the opportunity to make it yours, make it your voice, make it your words. But the edit means that you can cut things back. And you really do need to think about how punchy you can be. And rehearse and edit can happen just before you do a link. It can happen before the show. You might not do this all the time. You know, it might just be something you save for something you do that's really important to you. And then you perform. And actually, the reality of radio goes like this. You're performing and rehearsing all the time, really. You're on every single day. You're doing links 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 links an hour. You know, you're rehearsing all the time. And that's part of the creativity. You know, you're not going to get it right every time. The thing about preparing is you're giving yourself the best opportunity to. And the thing I wanted to talk to you most about in this planning section was looking at how you plan your show. Loads of presenters do this. I know even Chris Evans does this. I think he talks about it in his book. Draw around a CD, if there's still a CD anywhere near you. If not, get a mug. Draw around it and separate it up into what you're going to do. Now, if you're doing talk radio, it might be that you know you're going to be talking for 5 minutes on a topic, or it might be something else. So break it up like this, and you can see at a snapshot where you're going, how many songs are between what you're going to be talking about. Then you can come up with something like a link grid. So what, there are 5 links there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. So 5 links across the top, hours down the side, And you can make a note of all the things that you want to put in your links and how you want to do them. So make sure you're prepping, rehearsing, editing and performing, especially on the stuff that's important to you. Understand how your program looks. Plan ahead in stages so you can go beyond the show. You can look at weeks ahead, months ahead. I'll do more about that on the course and how you can amplify your content and utilize other platforms to do so. Oh, gone the wrong way. Now, finally, your voice. I have written down on this piece of paper, the voice is the portal to your soul. I was clearly having a very spiritual moment. You know when your friends phone you when they're tired by their voice. If you are in a relationship, you know when you are going to go into a huge argument by the tone of the voice on the other end of the phone. I can even tell by my husband by the tone of his breath whether he's going to be cross with me or not, or if I've done something to upset him, or if he's in a bit of a mood. You don't need to say words to come across and communicate. In the 60s, Albert Mehrabian did an experiment and came up with this about communication. We perceive communication, 55% body language, 38% vocal tone, 7% words. But hello, you're on the radio. There isn't any body language. So guess what? Another study was done in the 90s when we all started going on our mobile phones, and they found that 74% of communication came out of vocal tone. Therefore, how you feel and what you're saying on the radio is all through your voice.
I think that's really important. Just that one thing alone, to me, says a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? And also, I did a study when I was training to be a program controller, and we went and watched. The 5 of us on this course went and watched families listen to the radio, and a lot of them turn down the links and turn up the music. So you've literally got like 3 seconds to get your audience engaged, to get your listener engaged. And you're not going to do that by words, are you? Because you're not going to be able to say much in 3 seconds. So it's got to be about your voice. You've got to sound playful, or you sound like you. Anyway, these are the basics. Use your own voice and words, but plus about 10%. This is all about vintage you at your best. Continue to use your body language. Even though you can't be seen, your physical body will help you express yourself more. Always smile, or at least smile when it really counts, you know, and you'll find that you add that lovely light and shade into your voice. And make sure you warm up. Now, I don't know many presenters that actually do this, but I do know the people that do really go for it a lot. And, you know, you'll find them in studios going, like this. Warm up, use tongue twisters. Make sure when you go on the radio, it's not the first time that you've spoken that day. You know, it's really simple things. And there'll be more about that on the course as well. But I wanted to share with you my top 3 traps for using your voice. So you'll hear this on the radio a lot. You've probably done it yourself. When people start, they do it all the time. So the first one is shouting, and I've got an example of a presenter shouting.
Which we'll play now.
The 1975 and the sound on Station FM. I'm Tim. Hello. So something really embarrassing happened to me yesterday, and let me tell you this, right? So I was late picking the kids up from school. I was doing the school run, and I was 15 minutes late, and you have to give a reason for your lateness when you turn up to the school and go and pick them up in the reception. So I said, I don't know, should I lie and say like the traffic was bad? I thought, no.
So you can hear there, that's kind of monotonous. It's full on. He's not pausing. He's not taking a breath. This is something that is really common. People find that when they get into a studio and they want to project, they find themselves shouting across the room. Here's my tip to you. First of all, and you can do this right now, put your hands on your chest and talk. Just go la, 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 like you would normally talk. Go on, James.
I take part in this la, 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 la. Right.
So can you feel that your chest is vibrating?
Yeah, you can kind of feel like the bass vibrations, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas if you talk up here and you start shouting...
Hello, no, the vibrations go.
The vibrations go.
Yeah.
There are presenters across the land who present with their hands on their chest. You can imagine it looking very camp. like you know, holding their, like their diva darling, like this, with their hands on their chest. It really does help to bring you down and stop you from shouting.
Especially when I guess that would be a good way to get into the habit of not shouting. And this is a common thing that we've seen as well, is people, especially who perhaps aren't used to speaking into a microphone, will assume that they need to shout in order for the microphone to actually hear them, which obviously isn't the case.
Absolutely.
You just need to speak normally.
Do you want to give a quick burst of someone talking too fast? I am so guilty of this. This is my worst habit.
Sure, we'll cue this up.
Got it?
So 1975 on Station FM. Hello, I'm Tim, and I told you I'm going to give you a really, really embarrassing story, and this is what happened yesterday. So I was picking the kids up from school, and I was late because I fell asleep, and when you get to the reception...
So you can hear that he's racing away, his words are blurring into each other. It's really difficult to understand what he's saying. Often you need to just check yourself. Often you need to think, right, I just need to slow down, put more pauses in. But often the reason that people talk too fast is because they've got too much content for how much time that they've got.
Yeah,
so really make sure you're editing things down and getting to the good bits. Should we play the Wobblehead?
Absolutely. So let's go for Wobblehead.
A great song there from the 1975. That song is called The Sound. My name's Tim. Hello. Thank you very much for tuning in to Station on the FM dial. And I've got a really embarrassing story to tell you. So I was picking up the kids from school yesterday.
So the thing about that is, so it's probably, I don't know if it's a UK thing or an American, I don't know whether you'll have a version of it where you are.
I guess it's kind of like cliche, cheesy, old school radio presenter. I think it does vary in the UK to the USA, but I think, it's pretty common. You still hear guys who are stuck in that trap. And I think maybe that was kind of cool in the 80s, but not so much now.
And we call it's a funny thing. It's one of those things that has come up from conversations in offices and in production studios, this wobblehead idea, because it sounds like you're wobbling your head as you talk. I guess in America, there's the NPR type of start vocal tone as well, that you'll know as well. The point is, it's not yours, right? You're doing a voice that you think is right. So really ask your friends if you're doing it, and you can come out of that. There's more of this on the course, and I'm just drawing to a close now, because I hope you've got plenty from this. I hope that you've got a lot of pieces that you can bring together and help you today, tomorrow, to practice and get better at being a radio presenter. There's already loads of nuggets there. James is going to tell you a bit more about this 6-module course that I've put together with Radio.co.
And I think it's important to note, if you've two things actually. Firstly, we're going to be taking a Q&A in a second after we tell you a little bit about the course and about an exciting offer we've got for you. If you've got a question for us, you can tweet at Radio.co on Twitter, DOT, at Radio.co. Jamie is watching the Twitter, so he's going to be feeding back you guys questions to us. So Kate will be taking questions, and also if you've got any questions about the course, we can answer them. So what have we got for you? Well, basically, Kate's been busy building a radio course. As you can see, we've got an offer for you here. This course is called How to Be a Better Radio Presenter, and it's effectively a 5-week course, just like the other courses we've had on wave streaming in the past. It's taught online via video, audio, and also PDF worksheets, and it's full of practical theory, so stuff you can actually take away and use, along with real-life examples. It's got the tools and techniques that you need to succeed, and this has all been based around Kate's 15 years experience working in industry for the likes of BBC and Bauer Media, plus also her experiences working with numerous top-of-their-game private consulting clients, where she's worked one-on-one with and learned a lot from them, and also that she's given them a lot of tools that they could use. As she gave some examples then of people who work in music. So here's what the course really will do for you. And it doesn't matter if you're a national breakfast show DJ or if you're an internet radio host or perhaps you're a community radio presenter. You should always be striving to improve. And it's really a must to stay ahead of your game. Okay, really, really important to always make sure you're moving forward. And this course will really teach you how to be the best presenter that you can be. This is important because you want to keep listeners returning and tuning into you again and again. And also what we're going to be showing you is how to get into the minds of your listeners. Now, this kind of sounds a bit weird, I know, and we don't mean that in a voodoo sort of way, but instead what Kate will teach you is the different mindsets that your listeners have when they're listening to the radio. Depending on what they're doing and how they're listening to radio, they have a different mindset, which matches the activity. So you'll be able to discover the secret life hacks that professionals are using, if you like, to relate directly to your listeners' lives on a very deep level. You'll also learn how to become more memorable. So listeners, don't forget about your station and keep coming back and tuning into you time and time again. Plus also, this relates directly to mastering the art of becoming a great storyteller. We're also going to show you how to build a relationship with your listeners and how to bond with them using these techniques. And I mean really bond with them. None of that kind of fake stuff. We're talking about how to actually create a lasting relationship with your listener that causes them to know, like, and trust you, and causes them to really listen to you again and again and again, because people want to listen to people that they know, like, and trust ultimately. So they'll see you more as a trusted friend and an authority on air, rather than just someone, a voice in the radio, or just someone that they flick past. Which, of course, for you is an absolutely great position to be in. And when you do all of this stuff, your results are going to absolutely skyrocket. So the 7 modules which we're going to go over in this course, which Kate will take you through. After a quick introduction, we're going to dive into you and your listener. We're then going to talk about how you are the host and being the host. Also look at your voice, including the main vocal tracks like the ones we've just shown you that people kind of fall into. We're also going to be going over the techniques behind becoming a great storyteller, planning content, and finally, how to make the most of your content as well. So, as you can see up on your screen, we've got a URL which you can click onto. This is a pre-order link for the How to Be a Better Radio Presenter course, which is going to be launching in approximately a month's time. So radio.co/secret is the link we've got for you. And you won't find this course anywhere else, and you'll find it hard to get all of the techniques and information we talk about in the course anywhere, really. In particular, a lot of these techniques, the professionals who use them, a lot of them are really top of their game, and thus they don't really want them to leak out, and they never really talk about them. A lot of radio presenters who are really good never talk about why they're really good or what it is they're saying or doing, which Kate has actually dissected all this stuff and put it into this training course. And we've got this available right now for pre-order. We've got 50% early bird link. Now, the course isn't available yet, as I mentioned. We're going to be launching this in about a month's time. I think it's the end of May, isn't it?
Yeah, 26th, I think.
26th of May.
Yeah.
And we'll probably only have it open then for a couple of days, and we'll close it. The link on your screen is valid for until Tuesday.
Tuesday, the 3rd of May.
Tuesday, the 3rd of May. After that point, we'll be closing pre-orders. And we're offering this link, this 50% discount only to people who have watched this webinar. And it's 50% off the retail price, which is going to be $199 or more. We've also got a link to a consultancy package. Now, Kate is really busy and her time is incredibly valuable. So we've got a limit on this for 10 spaces because we can only take on 10 people at a time for the consulting package. That's just the way it is. If you're interested in doing that, we urge you to get in quickly to avoid sort of missing out there. It's ultimately about investing in your station and investing in yourself as well to reap the rewards. So if you head on to the link on your screen now, you can take advantage of this. So radio.co/secret. What we're going to do now is I'm going to transfer you over to Kate and also my colleague Mike, and we're going to take some questions and answers. So let's flick over to the camera. I'm going to say my goodbyes, and Mike is Mike's
You're very busy man, you've got somewhere to be.
Absolutely. I literally have to see you later, guys. So Kate, I'll hand over to you and Mike.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us and for being with us for the last hour. It's been a real pleasure doing this with you. And I know, there's lots of things going on in your life and all of that. So I'm thrilled that you could have spent the last hour with me and with James and with Mike. But Mike has a load of questions now. So bye, James. Bye. So I'm going to be on the spot and answering these questions with you.
So we've actually had quite a lot of questions.
Have we? So should we do a...
There we go.
Oh,
thank you.
All right, Mike, do you want to choose some?
So, should we go with... let's start with, would you say having a good interview style is essential to great broadcasting?
Having a good interview style. So there will be presenters that never do an interview. And there'll be presenters that do interviews with big guests, and there'll be presenters who talk to listeners. And actually, a lot of it is about having another person in the studio. So it could even be co-hosting, I guess. Having a good interview style is part of it. It's kind of... Everything that I teach is about having the right mindset, is about having, making sure that you're thinking about what your listener is wanting from you, is about being the best that you can be. So really engaging with what your strengths are. So if you are a good interviewer, get better at it and do lots of interviews. If you're not a very good interviewer, get better at it because you're probably going to be in a situation where you are going to be talking to someone. And the biggest thing about interview style is these. You've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and sometimes you've got to use them in that order. It's like your mum tells you, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So interviews, the best interviews are the ones where you let the interviewee talk and you listen to what they have to say, and then your questions come out of that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So essentially, you're kind of saying, if your general kind of presentation skills are down, then you can then just apply that to
absolutely
conversing with someone.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. That makes sense to me. Right, the next one. So what are some of the big mistakes that presenters should look out for?
Well, I think the vocal tone thing is massive. The vocal tone for me is the absolute key to the biggest mistakes that people make. You know, you can hear when people are reading, you can hear when people are tired, you can hear when people don't care, you can hear when people are bored. And I think we all think we're supposed to put on this amazing voice, and you don't. You talk like you, plus 10%. You know, I don't talk like I'm talking right now to all my friends, but it's more like how I talk to my friends than when I'm, you know, than if I'm going, hi, it's 6 on the AM now. You know, this is about being authentic. So your voice, I think, is the biggest mistake that presenters should watch out for. Yeah,
actually, the voice, you plus 10% thing makes me think of, you know, the Moz character from the It Crowd, Richard Ayoade. So I saw an interview that he did where he has a completely different voice to the whole nerd voice that he does. And then when he does his documentary about gadgets, he has his nerd voice.
Absolutely.
So I always imagine the producers and the directors saying, can you just turn up the nerd a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's what it's all about. You know, it's vintage you. It's the you're presenting. It's not some other person you think you're supposed to sound like, you know, or shouting someone into a submission.
So how should I prepare before going live on air?
Preparation is as personal to a presenter as the actual delivery of the content. Some people really like to over prepare. I've worked with presenters who script everything, you know, and actually are so good at reading scripts, they have to read the scripts. And if they fall off, they sound like they're being fake. It's really weird. But, you know, I think the reality is that it's all down to your resource, how much time you have, what you're doing. And really, really good presenters are preparing all the time. You know, a lot of people have notebooks with them or dictaphones, things like that, that mean that they're making notes of those observations, like that ridiculous pen pot observation. I mean, I don't know if that's actually a link, but it's something around, you know, I'm sure that's an analogy for something, but the point was, it was about making that connection. So preparing, as I said in that planning stage, it's about looking at what you've got coming, knowing how to be in charge of your radio show, putting on the best show that you can, and then really playing with it and going again and going again and going again. Don't fall into the trap that you're trying to be spontaneous, because spontaneity actually comes out of great prep. Nothing that you see on the television that seems spontaneous is really spontaneous. If you've ever watched Top Gear, they are the best at storytellers, and you know that they know the end before they've even started. So they crafted the story to make the end really good. You know, that is good preparation. So I would say find what works for you, but utilize the tools that I've given you today to really have a think about how you are prepping.
So the next one, I think you've probably covered this quite well in the presentation so far in the webinar, is how can I develop my on-air identity as someone unique that people want to engage with?
Okay, so the course will really help you do this. The course, we go over everything. It's like I said, you've got this kind of unique personality that's you, and then you've got these kind of disciplines of being a host. And the disciplines of being a host, you can really teach. You know, it's like look forward, tease, all of that, you know, say your name, blah, blah, blah. The personality stuff is really hard to teach, actually. And a lot of that is about having self-awareness, understanding what's good. You know, make sure you're doing listen backs to yourself. Make sure you hear when you're doing something really well. You know, I say to a lot of my presenters when they're with their bosses and they're having their snoops and stuff, there is one question that you need to ask when someone says something to you, and it's this. Someone will come to you and go, God, I really enjoyed the show today. And your response shouldn't be, oh, thanks. It should be, what did you like about it? It's such an important question, because often when we get feedback, it's negative or it's, you know, constructive criticism. Most of the time when people think something's good, they never give you it in any level of detail. So that's a really good way to start developing your self-awareness and understanding what other people like about you already. There are different things that you can do. That 10 things you know to be true about yourself list that I've talked about before works beautifully, because it really starts you thinking about, okay, what is it about me that I like? You know, what is it about me that, you know, my quirks? And also, you know, what is it your friends like about you? That's often quite a good tip. Working out what they like about you too. And as I said early on, you know, I talk a lot about, right, what are your strengths? If we do a one-to-one consultation, we talk a lot about what are your strengths and how do we develop those strengths? You know, it's not necessarily the point to find what you're really bad at and make it better. If we develop your strengths, you can be brilliant, yeah? And you can be really comfortable. Often, what we take for granted is actually what we're really good at. You know, where we're really talented often is the thing we find really easy and we don't think much of it. So you really need to kind of start thinking about, what do I do on the radio that I find really easy and I don't have to think much of, and it probably comes out sounding okay. That'll be one of your strengths.
Okay, so next question. What steps should I take to land a job in radio?
Cool. That's a whole webinar in itself. That is a whole webinar in itself. Depends what you want to do. Bang down doors. Say hello to people. Work on building relationships. Don't work on trying to get a job. Work on asking for help. Don't work on getting a job. When you send a demo, make sure it's relevant to the person you're sending the demo to. God, these are just quick fire things. I could honestly talk for an hour on this. Maybe that's my next one.
Yeah.
I think in the role of a program controller, I've run radio stations and I was really surprised by how few people pestered me. And so I've made it a mantra to people to say, you know, you can never pester me too much. You know, you cannot pester me too much. And if you do, you'll know. And it's not a big deal. You know, I'm not going to think worse of you because you have pestered me. I'm actually going to think more of you because you have. And all program controllers across the world are now going to be cursing me because I hope that you're going to be sending them demos, asking for feedback, not jobs, and then pestering them to give you that. Because really, those bosses that you're sending those show reels to, I was guilty of this as well. You're so busy, you just get on to the next thing, and your demo just has to land at the right moment, or your follow-up email just has to land at the right moment. So you have to just keep taking a chance. Believe in yourself, listen, and bang down doors. Yeah. Probably the three.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I mean, that's applicable for any industry.
Yeah, really it is. Yeah.
Okay, so the next question, which kind of leads on from that, can I send you my demo for some feedback?
You sure can. I really don't mind. You'll find me on Twitter. That @presenter_coach is a good place to start. And then, you know, we'll get onto a DM conversation. We can work out how it can be sent through. I will be realistic with your expectations right now. If I get 100 demos, it's going to be very difficult to listen to them all, but I'm really happy to give a little bit of feedback, and I'll give it to you straight. I won't fanny around and, you know,
and I guess
try and bluff you into thinking that, you know, you're going to be an amazing presenter. I'll find what's good about you and we'll work on that, you know.
Yeah, and I guess if people want to go into more detail with you, then they could potentially look at booking a consultant.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the course is great. Those consultancies are just, that is about making it really unique and something that is, you know, we can work on you and your strengths and pull those through.
Yeah. So
I'm going to keep looking at this list. I can see it all. Thanks for all the questions. They're really good.
What should you do or say in the event that something goes wrong? Like a song stops playing early or it doesn't play at all?
Right. In that specific example, you got to go with your gut. If a song stops playing early, you probably might want to come out and go, oh, that's just stopped a bit early, and you just breeze over it. If it doesn't play at all, probably a similar thing. The thing that gets me is if something happens, like there's a massive gap. So you might go, the song stopped, then there's a huge gap, and then there's the news, and then about 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, the presenter comes on and goes, oh, I don't know what happened there. Just let it pass. Let it pass. You know, I've done some awful things, and it's mortifying when something goes wrong, or you think you might have offended the audience completely by accident. That's a whole other story. Your mistakes are what make you. Success isn't a straight line. Success is this. You know, mistakes, when you make them, that's a cleanse. You know, you don't have to point them out. I wouldn't point them out if you've passed by about 10 minutes because you're only just reminding people that you made a mistake. If you're right there on top of it, you know, maybe reference it and go, oh, I'm not really sure what happened there. There must be some gremlins in the system. And then you move on just into the next thing. But making a big deal of it or saying sorry 1,000 times, like Ollie Murs did on X Factor that time, just draws attention to, you know, you don't need to apologize. You don't need to undermine yourself. Sometimes stuff goes wrong. It's no biggie.
So, and I guess actually that they're kind of technical issues, but then the other side to it is if you have a guest or if you're doing a phone in and something goes wrong with that.
Yeah.
How do you manage that kind of sort of scenario, do you think?
Well, things like people on the phone, just make sure you've got a decent line. Don't be afraid of pre-recording stuff, actually. If you want to be completely in control of something, don't be afraid of pre-recording it. There are times when that's not relevant or necessary. So if you lose a listener, again, I'm really sorry, we seem to have lost you, and move on. Often you'll find that radio stations now in their terms and conditions will put this as a fact in their terms and conditions, that if we lose you on the line, then you can't win. So actually you're kind of covered as a radio presenter because your station has probably got those terms and conditions in, so you don't need to feel necessarily too bad. What did you say? It was swearing is a big one. So if a guest swears or says something that you're not convinced is going to go down well with the audience / the radio authority that you're working to, you just need to pull down the fader, say sorry, and just take control. It's your studio. Don't underestimate that. You are in control of that space. And if someone comes in, even that's a mate that you think, I need my own space now, get them out. It's your studio, it's your space. You've got to perform the best that you can, and you can control that element,
Okay, that's so the next question. I think we've probably kind of covered this, but I'll leave it anyway. Which is, what's the best advice you can give when making the leap or attempting to make the leap from amateur to professional?
Practice, 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 practice. Or I heard a great thing the other day that Prince said, that Prince obviously did loads and loads and loads and loads of practice, and one of his musicians came in and said, "Oh, I'm going to do some practice now with you, yeah?" And Prince went, "Beginners practice, professionals rehearse." So maybe the difference between amateur and professional is to just rehearse, not practice. So I think, getting on your game, sounding in charge is the difference between an amateur and a great presenter. Sounding in charge, that means having control over your voice, control over what you're saying to your audience. That means not letting things run away with you. That means just being in charge and in control. That makes a big, big difference. But yeah, practice, getting feedback makes a big difference. I think in today's world, especially in the UK where we've got a lot of networking, the difficult jump is actually going from doing a weekend breakfast show to doing 5 days a week. That's the hard jump, because actually you've got to come up with content every single day. So if you're in an amateur situation, by which I mean something like potentially a hospital radio or a community radio show, I suspect you consider yourself in that stage as well, or a student radio show, for example. It's all about making sure you're practicing and you're getting good feedback. And you're actually in a really good position. If you've got a daily show, you're in a really good position to hone those skills that you will be landed when you make that professional leap.
Okay, so
are we going to do many more? Because I'm just concerned about time.
We've got I'll pick the best ones from what we've got left.
All right.
Okay, so how can you make sure your listeners don't hear your breathing? Any way to reduce the chances of this?
If people are hearing your breathing, there are two things that are going on. One, you're too close to the mic and you're really loud as a breather. Two, the settings on your mic are probably turned really high. So you might have a high EQ on your mic, which means that you can hear this sound specifically. Or you might have a lot of compression on your mic, which means it's pulling in all the really quiet sounds as well. So if you have an engineer near you, or you have the ability to do it yourself, change it. In terms of the breathing thing, I would suggest always, can you see my mic? I can't see the screen.
I will just switch it over one moment.
Sorry, I just need to be able to see what I'm doing. So, can I see the screen?
Right,
here we go. So there's the microphone.
Perfect.
Right, there we go. So always, if you've seen the King's Speech, they do this on the King's Speech, it's brilliant. Always make sure you're a decent length away from the mic, that you're not always right up against it. Also, if your breathing is going in, you might want to think about talking across it. So often on a microphone, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear me properly. Often on a microphone, can you see there's a logo there? That's often where you need to talk into. So there's your bit you talk into. So if I'm talking into it straight without a pop shield, you're going to hear all the pop. I suspect you are. If I turn it to the side, you should hear less pop, but still have me. So it's about being able to talk across it rather than into it, and that'll probably help your breathing as well.
That's really useful.
That's a good tip. There you go.
I'm going to use that one next time we record a podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and let's just do one last question, and it's because it's from someone called Kowalski, and I like that name.
Oh,
that's why it
amazing.
stood out. How long should a demo be?
Right, back in the olden days when people were allowed to smoke indoors, we used to say that the length of a demo should be the length of a cigarette because you'd probably be listening to it like this. I actually get my presenters to send demos in a really different way now. I get them to send demos as presenter links. So I'll say, right, choose maybe your top 5 links that would suit this radio station, put them in a playlist on SoundCloud and send them. Just as your listener will make up their mind in 3 seconds, you've got about 10 seconds. And whenever I do sessions with students, I often do it, right, put your hands up when you're bored, and it's usually about the 1:50 mark. So if you've got 1:50 to impress someone, 10 seconds to impress someone, then you've got to put your best stuff first. But I do think that idea of just having links that you can click through gives the person you're sending it to some opportunity to really hear you. They go, oh, I'll choose that one and listen. Oh, okay. So they're in a bit of control as well. The other thing is really think about if you're sending a piece of audio, like, okay, no longer than 3 minutes, I'm going to say to you. But if you can do it in less, amazing. The point of a demo is, number 1, the beginning should make me want to listen to the whole thing or to listen to more. And number 2, do not send a demo that is more than 1 megabyte in audio, because you are going to block up my email and it's going to really annoy me. It's just a flat out rule. So I would say that SoundCloud link idea is often a really good way to do it. And I've seen a lot of success of doing that.
Okay, that's great.
There you go.
Brilliant. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the questions. So thank you, Kate.
No worries. Thank you again for joining me on this. And yeah, it's been a really lovely ride to be able to put this together for you. And I really hope that you've got something out of it that you can take with you today.
If you want to take advantage of the 50% early bird discount, then that's going to be available for the next 5 days. And you can grab that by heading to radio.co/secret.
Because it's a secret.